Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this Bible meditation about love. We are moving into Thanksgiving, if you are watching this during the premiere. So we're going to talk today about Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, and Mark chapter 12, verse 31. I'm your host, Dr. Donnelly Snipes. So in Leviticus, this is Old Testament stuff. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. So let's think about that. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is something that we hear repeated over and over again. And one of the things I find interesting is a lot of times Christians fail to recognize that love was a major component in the Old Testament. It wasn't all about fear and fire and brimstone. God wanted us to love one another. So this is echoed again in Mark 12, verse 31. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So let's think about this. When we think about love, obviously we think about Corinthians, we think about the fruits of the Spirit. So there's a lot of things that go into love. When I talk about love, I talk about good, orderly direction. When we follow the principles of love, we are following God. And when we follow God, it perfects us. It perfects our environment. It helps perfect those around us. It sets a good model. And then that just ripples out, if you will. So what goes into love? Prudence. This is getting the facts. Instead of acting on instinct or acting on emotion, we are prudent. We get the facts about what's going on. We educate ourselves and we're patient before we act. We don't just react. We don't just act on autopilot, but we're prudent in our actions. Earnestness. We give 100%. If we say we're going to do something, gosh darn it, we do it. And it's important to remember that earnestness means living with integrity. If you give your word, you do what you say you're going to do, and you do it 100%. You don't cheat somebody out of time. You don't quiet quit, for example. Respect for self and other. When you start having respect for yourself and recognize that how you deserve to be treated and that you deserve to be loved and the things that you deserve, then you can start seeing, okay, well, if I deserve these things, probably means that other people deserve them too, because I'm no different than my neighbor. So if I'm respecting myself, how can I give that same respect to my neighbor? Forgiveness of self and other. And interestingly enough, sometimes it's easier to forgive other. But let's think about forgiveness of self. And this is for the little things, the little transgressions. A lot of times we minimize, ignore, blame, just overlook when we make minor faux pas, when we do things that are unkind or unloving, but they're not huge. They may be disrespectful or or they may be selfish, but a lot of times we ignore those or we minimize them. So it's important that when we do something wrong, that we forgive ourselves for it, but we also note what we did and we learn from it. Forgiveness means saying, I'm not going to tie my energy up in this, but I'm also going to learn from it so I can move forward. Forgiveness of others is the same way when they do minor transgressions to large ones. It doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay, no problem. It means saying, I am choosing not to tie up my energy stewing on anger over this. Instead, I'm going to learn from it so I can stay safe. I can protect myself from this happening again, and I can move forward. Endurance, and this is a big one right now, endurance of pain and challenges. People are going through so much turmoil, so much chaos, so many challenges right now. But endurance is part of love. Endurance means not giving up. Endurance means grabbing the hand of your neighbor and moving headlong into those winds that may be feeling like they're blowing you back. Compassion for self and other is also important. Showing compassion for yourself, giving yourself a break, not holding yourself to unrealistic standards, and having compassion for other people when they're having a bad day, instead of automatically jumping into this judgy framework, stepping back and going, whether it's yourself or somebody else, are they doing the best they can with the tools they have right now? Truthfulness is also important. And this is truthfulness with yourself. What is it that I want? What is it that I think? What is it that I need right now? Instead of telling yourself what you should think, want, and need, really being truthful with yourself about what's going on with you and what you need in order to feel safe, loved, and nurtured. And the same thing, being truthful with other people. That means being your authentic self. Now, sometimes you can't be 100% authentic. You're not going to show up at your workplace in sweats and a t-shirt because that's how you prefer to dress. Sometimes we've got to conform a little bit, but it's important to be truthful with people to the extent that it is safe about what our thoughts, wants, and needs are. And finally, selflessness. And this is another word for kindness. It doesn't mean giving until you're completely drained and burned out and you can give no more. It means using your energy to spread kindness throughout the world, using the energy that you have after you've taken care of yourself to nurture those around you. And, sometimes you're going to give a little bit more than you got if you've got a sick relative, for example, but you're not making a habit of that because it wouldn't be prudent. If you are completely drained and exhausted and burned out, you're not going to have the energy to endure. You're not going to have the energy to give. You're not going to have the energy to nurture. So it's important to remember that God wants us to be able to feel safe and loved and abundant in our life. And these principles can help us nurture our relationships, not only with ourselves and with Him, but with our neighbors.